Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I have yet another movie review. This movie is a mystery thriller from Serbia, spoken in the Serbo-Croatian language with English subs, released in the year 2011, directed by Dejan Zezovic, and this film is called The Enemy. So The Enemy takes place days after the ceasefire in the Bosnian War in the 1990s, and this Serbian patrol are left with the task of clearing out landmines that they've left behind. So they're stationed at this base and they're waiting for the new shift to come along so they can go back to their home, to their loved ones, and forget that the war ever happened. But this is not happening. The next shift is taking its time and they're starting to get frustrated. So one day on patrol, they're going around this dilapidated area and they come across this factory. Inside the factory there is a pit of dead bodies, and this is very alarming because there's supposed to be a ceasefire, so they don't know what's going on, and they realise that there is a man that has been walled in. So he's been kept captive, but they don't know why. So they take down this wall and they realise that there is a Serbian individual. There is a man, he's very strange, but he seems to be a civilian, and he says that he's been there for quite some time. So they're trying to get to the bottom of why he was being held as captive, but he's not really giving any straight answers. So they take him back to the base, and this is where things start to get very strange, as the soldiers that were once close like a family are now starting to fight against each other. So they start to believe that it has something to do with the presence of this mysterious man, and so this whole base that was once their home has now turned into a psychological battleground. So what happens at that point on is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Enemy. While this movie is not terribly memorable, it's not a movie that's going to win any Oscar awards, it's not a movie that you're going to really remember in a few weeks' time, it was still a very captivating film, and it was a very eerie feeling that I got from this film, is because it was a movie, not so much a horror movie, it was more a detailing of the horrors of war and the mental scars that war can bring upon people. So the movie was just very interesting in the way it went about it. I thought that the tone of the film was very boring, but it wasn't actually a boring film to watch. So you could actually feel the frustrations of these soldiers, so it was deeply psychologically tormenting, I thought, and I just think this is another clear indication of how good Serbian films actually are. And it wasn't until a Serbian film and Life and Death of the Porno Gang came about where the world started to notice Serbian movies. But there have been many great Serbian movies, such as Tears for Sale, which was a great dark fairy tale, and also the works of Emir Kusturica in the 90s, when it was the old Yugoslavia. He made some great films as well. So it's no surprise that other Serbian films have been very good, but they just haven't had that memorable quality that a Serbian film and Life and Death or Porno Gang have, that really appeals to a worldwide market. So this movie, although it is very solid, it still doesn't have that X factor. It doesn't have that quality about it to make it appeal to a lot of people. It's a very psychological film. It's very different as far as a war film is concerned. It's not so much about the battles, it's about the psychological battles. So there's no gunfights, and it's very dialogue heavy. So if you're not a fan of that kind of stuff, I would steer clear of it. But I really like the dialogue in this film, because each and every character was painted in a very unique way. So it never felt like a character was on the screen for no reason. It actually felt like the next person was just as important as the other. So it doesn't have one person that really steals the show. So when that happens, it doesn't matter who's on screen, you're still captivated by it. So Dejan Zezovic felt like he had a solid plan, and he's executed that plan fairly well, in my opinion. I thought the overall inclusion of this mysterious civilian, I thought that's where the plot really thickens, and that's when the mystery starts to gather pace. I thought that the director leaves a lot up to your interpretation, so he's really acknowledging that the viewer has a mind of their own, that the viewer doesn't need to be spoon-fed everything that's going on, and because you can make your own interpretations up, there's a strong level of mystery that keeps you wanting to know more. The mystery is good enough to really keep you glued to the screen. So although there is no shooting, there's no loud explosions, it's still very enticing for you to want to go and see what's around the next corner. So script-wise, it was very, very good. As I said, it showed you the horrors of war. It showed you the dull, repetitive nature that these people were going through, and they just wanted to go home. And so when this new guy comes into it, you start to think, who is the enemy? All these soldiers think that this new guy is the enemy, because as soon as he's come into the picture, they've started to really fight each other. But then you start to think, okay, is this guy Satan himself, as some of the soldiers think he is? Is this guy just a civilian? Is it just their minds that are going crazy? Or is this guy manifestations of all their frustrations? Is this just a symbolism of the horrors of war, the mental scars, the anguish, the fear, and just the depression that has become about as a result of this conflict? So is this guy just a symbolisation of the Bosnian War? And so when you don't know who the villain is and who's at fault, it just keeps a lot of unpredictability. You don't know how it's going to finish. And when it does finish, I just thought to myself, yeah, I saw a very good film. Cinematography was excellent. It was very grey. It felt like it had been sucked out of all of its life. It felt like you were almost in the world of purgatory, you know, just something that you're just waiting for nothing, and that these characters felt very bored, and then all of a sudden they have to start fighting their inner demons. And are they their worst enemy? Are they their own worst enemy, or is in fact this guy the enemy, or are the Bosnians the enemy? So it just doesn't have a clear-cut good versus bad. You know, they're their enemy, we're the good guys. It just has a lot of interpretation, and that's what creates a lot of mystery. But as I said, the only problem I have with the film is that it doesn't strike you on a very memorable level, and at the end of it, you know, although it does leave it up to your interpretation, it's not one of these films where you're going to want to replay it over and over. So that's the only bad thing I can say about this movie in what was otherwise a fairly decent film that I would recommend to anyone out there who is a fan of Serbian cinema and wants to watch other films apart from the two very famous films that I've just mentioned. It's worth your time at the end of it. Although you might not be blown away, you'll still think to yourself, I'm happy that I took the time and effort to experience what this film has to offer. So overall, for The Enemy, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.